Brian pushed the termination papers across the gleaming conference table and explained, "We need hungry talent that can meet higher targets. The business is taking a different course. Darren McCabe is my name. With the age of 46, I have worked as a senior account executive with Triana Corp in Kansas City, Missouri, for 9 years. Almost 40% of the company's revenue came from the clientele I had cultivated over the course of almost 10 years. Long days, continuous travel, and relationships based on trust. No shortcuts. I thanked him for the chance, grinned, and left without a fight. The CEO brought in Brian Ellsworth as our new VP of Sales 6 months ago in an attempt to revitalize the group. He never once joined me on a client call, wore designer suits, and spoke in stale, motivating words. Even though my numbers were regularly high, he had instituted a new commission structure 3 weeks after I started that drastically reduced my revenues by 20%. There were signs. During office renovations, my desk had been repositioned to a corner. On meeting invites, my name vanished. While I was eating lunch yesterday, I'd observed it working on my computer. Not much to say, but enough to know that something was coming. I crammed 9 years into one cardboard box, including a folder of customer contact details I'd maintained apart from the company database, family photos, and a coffee mug my daughter had drawn. Really, it's just habit. Valerie in accounting asked, "Need help with that?" She seemed truly perplexed. "Are you changing offices?" I said, "Something like that, so as not to cause a scene." I stood behind our CEO, Everett Stanton, on the elevator trip down. Too preoccupied with his phone to notice me, he nodded. He was unaware of Brian's recent actions or how they might affect the quarterly estimates, but he would soon learn about them. I didn't feel angry as I walked to my car. It was just a weird realization, as if you had woken up from a long, cozy dream to discover that the house had never truly belonged to you. I drove quietly home. No radio, no calls, only thoughts of tomorrow. As I got into my driveway, my phone began to vibrate. My largest client is Travis Ricks. Next week was the yearly contract renewal. When he would come in town, he would text me to make reservations for supper. He was unaware at the time. No one did. Without picking up, I placed the phone on the kitchen counter and peered out the window. 9 years of client relationships, all based on my dependability and word. Today, Brian did more than just terminate a worker. He would sever Travant's loan linked to millions of dollars, and he didn't know. Prior to the rebranding and the opulent downtown office, I worked for Travant when it was still known as Midwestern Financial Services. I was directly hired by Everett from a rival company where I had been meeting goals but was not being considered for a promotion. "I want someone who knows this market," he had stated clearly. "Someone clients trust." He was right to trust me for 7 years. I expanded our clientele from local companies to national accounts. We increased the duration of our contracts from 1 year to 3 and 5 years. When Lockhart Manufacturing quit our largest rival, we brought them in. When no one believed we had a chance, we added the Henderson Group. My wife Rebecca used to joke that I was married to my clients. Thursday night dinner with the Johnsons again. She'd ask, already knowing the answer. The kids grew used to me missing ball games and recitals. Dad's working became their normal. I promised it would be worth it someday. 3 promotions, 2 office expansions, and 1 recession later, Travant had grown from a $4 million operation to a $30 million enterprise, with my accounts responsible for about $12 million of that. Not that anyone had calculated the exact percentage until Brian arrived. The first red flag appeared during a quarterly review meeting 3 months after Brian took over sales. "Your client acquisition rate has flatlined," he said, pointing to a chart that showed I'd only added 2 new accounts that quarter. "Because I'm focused on expanding existing relationships," I explained. The Lockhart contract just doubled. "The future is in new business," Brian insisted. We need hunters, not farmers. A week later, my executive assistant, Julia, was reassigned. The following month, my travel requests required additional approval. My expense reports came back with questions. Small things. Death by 1,000 cuts. I started hearing whispers about fresh talent being interviewed, young MBAs with aggressive pitches and no industry experience. Brian called them disruptors. Last month, he hired Alicia Winters, 29, from a tech startup. During her first week, she was assigned to join me on a call with Travis Ricks. No explanation, no proper introduction, just showing her the ropes. Travis noticed. After the call, he texted me, "Who's the new girl? Are you training your replacement?" I laughed it off. Just expanding the team. But driving home that night, I felt something shift in my gut, the kind of certainty that comes from years of reading boardrooms and client faces. Something wasn't right. I should have trusted that feeling sooner. I placed my cardboard box on the kitchen counter and poured myself 2 fingers of bourbon. The house was empty. Rebecca was at her sister's place in Denver for the week, helping with a new baby, probably for the best. I needed the quiet. I pulled out my personal phone and scrolled through my contacts. 9 years of relationships. Over 200 clients, vendors, and industry connections. People who trusted me to handle their business. People who'd sign with Travent because of me, not our corporate marketing or flashy downtown office. My work phone, now sitting disabled in the box, contained only the official correspondence. The dinner invitations, the golf outings, the personal cell numbers of CEOs and decision makers. Those were all here on my personal device. Information I'd accumulated by being someone people wanted to work with. I sipped my drink and felt a strange calm settle over me. No panic. No desperation about mortgage payments or health insurance. Just a clear understanding of what had happened, and what would happen next. The bourbon burned going down. 9 years of 60-hour weeks. Of missed family dinners and little league games. 9 years of building something I thought was mine, only to discover it wasn't. I opened my laptop and pulled up my employment contract. The non-compete clause was there, but limited in scope. 1 year, and only applicable if I left voluntarily. Being terminated changed things. There was no legal barrier to taking my clients elsewhere. My phone buzzed. Travis again. Dinner reservation confirmed for Thursday. Looking forward to discussing the renewal. I stared at the message for a long time. Travis Ricks represented $1.7 million in annual business for Travent. His company, Lockhart Manufacturing, had been with me for 6 years. Before that, 3 years at my previous firm, almost a decade of trust. And he wasn't alone. The Henderson Group, Westfield Properties, Carlton Industries, together, they accounted for another $1.5 million. All of them had contract renewals coming up in the next 30 days. All of them dealt exclusively through me. I set my glass down and made a decision. I wouldn't call anyone tonight, wouldn't send angry emails or make threats. I'd sleep on it, wake up clear-headed, and then make exactly 3 phone calls. Not to vent or complain, just to inform my closest clients that I was no longer with Travent, effective immediately. The rest would happen on its own. I took out the family photos from my box. My daughter's graduation, my son's wedding, the trip to Yellowstone we almost canceled because of a client emergency. I'd missed too much already. Tomorrow, I'd start making different choices. I finished my bourbon and went upstairs to sleep in an empty house. For the first time in years, I didn't set an alarm. No early flights, no quarterly projections to review before dawn. Just the calm certainty that Brian Ellsworth had made a catastrophic mistake. And I didn't need to do anything but step aside and let it unfold. I made my 3 calls the next morning. No dramatics, just facts. Travis, I'm no longer with Travent as of yesterday. Wanted you to hear it from me directly. His response was immediate. What happened? Who's handling our account now? Brian Ellsworth will probably reach out. Or maybe Alicia Winters. A long pause. The girl from the meeting. She doesn't know our business. That's all I can tell you. The rest is your decision. Similar conversations with James Henderson and Peter Carlton. No suggestions, no recruitment pitch, just information delivered with the same reliability they'd come to expect from me. By noon, my personal phone was buzzing constantly. Other clients had heard. The industry was small that way. At 2 p.m., Everett Stanton called. I let it go to voicemail. Darren, this is Everett. We need to talk about your transition. Several clients are expressing concerns. Please call me back immediately. I didn't. Instead, I drove downtown to meet with Lawrence Finch, an attorney who specialized in employment law. I'd helped his son-in-law secure financing for a restaurant 3 years ago. He owed me a favor. They can't stop you from working, Lawrence confirmed after reviewing my termination papers. But they'll try to scare your clients from following you. Prepare for that. By 4 p.m., Travant's legal department had emailed a reminder about confidentiality obligations. By 5:00 p.m., Brian had texted, Let's discuss your exit package. There might be room for consulting work. Too late. My phone buzzed again at 5:30 p.m. Travis, just got off a call with your CEO and that VPU fired you. They promised continuity. Said Alicia would handle everything personally. Then they offered a 10% discount on renewal. What did you tell them? I asked. That I'd think about it. I said nothing. Travis continued, I've sent notice terminating our contract, citing change in relationship management. Henderson and Carlton did the same. Still, I said nothing. Darren, where are you landing? Because wherever it is, that's where our business is going. That night, 3 more companies from my portfolio sent termination notices to Travant. By morning, the total was 8, representing over $3.2 million in contracts. Everett called an emergency board meeting. I know because Julia, my former assistant, texted me. Complete chaos here. Brian trying to blame you for client tampering. CEO asking why nobody saw this coming. My phone rang again. A number I didn't recognize. Darren McCabe, I answered. Michael Grantley here. Grantley and Company. A competitor, smaller firm, better reputation. I hear you're available, and several of our mutual friends speak highly of you. I'm listening. Senior Vice President position. 6-figure signing bonus. Full autonomy to manage your own accounts. And a seat on our executive committee. When would you want me to start? How's tomorrow sound? I accepted on the spot, not out of urgency or desperation, but because it was exactly what I wanted. Respect, autonomy, and recognition of the value I brought. That afternoon, Brian texted again. Board approved a retention package. Full salary for 6 months, plus stock options. Just help us transition your accounts. I didn't respond. There was nothing to say. They'd had 9 years to value what I built. Now they were scrambling to put a price on it after the fact. Too little. Far too late. 1 week into my new role at Grantley and Company, Julia called me from a personal number. You need to know what happened, she said. It wasn't just Brian wanting his own people. I sat in my new corner office, larger than the one at Travant, and listened as 9 years of history reshuffled into a clearer picture. They were planning to sell the firm, Julia explained. Veritas Capital made an offer 2 months ago, but with conditions. They wanted to bring in their own account managers for the major clients, integrate them with their existing portfolio companies. The pieces clicked into place. Brian hadn't been hired to grow sales. He'd been brought in to transition accounts away from me, making them company assets rather than relationships tied to a single executive. My termination wasn't about performance. It was preparation for acquisition. "How do you know this?" I asked. "I'm still assigned to the executive suite. I see the documents, hear the conversations. Yesterday, they pulled the offer. Veritas won't buy without the client base you built." After we hung up, I sat still for a long time. 9 years of loyalty, and they've been willing to detach me from my clients like removing a middleman. Not because I failed, because I succeeded too well. The relationships were too strong, too personal. They needed me gone before clients could be repackaged as corporate assets. I opened my laptop and checked my email. More former clients had reached out. The industry was humming with the news. Darren McCabe had moved to Grantley, and clients were following. Travent's stock had dropped 12% in 5 days. My phone buzzed with a text from Everett. "Can we meet? Just you and me. No lawyers." I didn't respond immediately. The deeper betrayal settled in my stomach like cold lead. Not just fired. Deliberately sacrificed as part of a corporate chess game. I picked up the phone and called Travis Hendress. "I need to ask you something," I said. "Did Travent try to introduce you to anyone from Veritas Capital in the last few months?" A pause. "How did you know?" "They brought in some guy, Thomas, during our quarterly review. Said he was a strategic advisor looking at our industry. Asked a lot of questions about our future needs." Confirmation. They'd been parading Veritas representatives in front of my clients, laying groundwork for transition, all while I was still employed, still trusting I was building something that mattered. More calls revealed the same pattern. Behind my back, meetings scheduled, information gathered, relationships probed for weaknesses or areas where I might be expendable. By the end of the day, I'd confirmed that at least 6 of my major accounts had been covertly introduced to Veritas representatives, all under the guise of strategic advisors or industry consultants. I finally texted Everett back. "No meeting necessary. I understand the Veritas situation completely." His response came quickly. "It was a business decision, Darren. Nothing personal." But it was personal. 9 years of building relationships, of knowing clients' kids' names and their vacation spots, of answering calls on weekends and holidays, all reduced to an impediment for a corporate transaction. I closed my laptop and looked out at the Kansas City skyline from my new office. The view was different here, clearer somehow. Grantley had already signed contracts with 11 of my former clients, representing nearly $5 million in annual revenue, and more were coming. Not because I was recruiting them, but because in this business, trust followed people, not logos or corporate strategies. Travent hadn't just lost a salesman. They'd lost the foundation their growth was built upon, and they still didn't fully understand why. 3 weeks after joining Grantley, I received an invitation to speak at the Midwest Financial Services Conference. The panel topic: Building Client Loyalty in a Transactional Market. The irony wasn't lost on me. I accepted, not for ego or exposure, but because I knew who would be in that audience. Industry peers, potential clients, and most importantly, Travent's remaining leadership team. Everett never missed this conference. Neither did the board members. Meanwhile, Grantley had given me resources Travent never offered. 2 dedicated analysts, marketing support, and most crucially, equity partnership. Every client I brought in wasn't just commission. It was building something I partially owned. I spent a month preparing for the conference, not with flashy slides or rehearsed anecdotes, but with data. Working nights with my analysts, I compiled performance metrics for every client who had followed me from Travent to Grantley. The results were undeniable. Average service response time reduced by 53%. Implementation costs down 30%. Client satisfaction scores up by 22 points. It wasn't just about me. It was about proving what happened when companies valued relationships over transactions. The morning of the conference, I reviewed my notes one last time. No dramatic reveals, no naming names, just facts and outcomes. Professional, measured, devastating. As I walked into the hotel ballroom, I spotted Everett immediately, huddled with two board members near the coffee station. His face tightened when he saw me. I nodded politely and moved on. The panel discussion began with standard questions about market trends and technological disruption. When my turn came, I spoke plainly about what clients truly valued. In an age where everything is automated and digitized, personal accountability has become the rarest commodity. I said companies often mistake client relationships for company assets. They aren't. They're trust agreements between individuals that need constant reinforcement. I presented my data without mentioning Travant by name, just case studies of clients who had switched firms and seen immediate improvements. The lesson isn't about retention packages or contractual obligations, I concluded. It's about understanding that when you treat relationship managers as interchangeable parts, clients will show you exactly how wrong an assumption is. During the Q&A, an audience member, a young analyst I didn't recognize, asked a question everyone was thinking. Isn't your recent move from Travant to Grantley, along with several major clients, exactly the scenario companies fear when they consider how much autonomy to give relationship managers? The room went silent. I could feel Everett's eyes boring into me from across the room. That's a fair question, I replied. But consider the alternative. Travant lost those clients not because I took them, but because they failed to understand what those clients actually valued. No one followed me out of personal loyalty alone. They followed because their needs were consistently better met through my approach to service, an approach my former employer decided was no longer aligned with their direction. I paused, making brief eye contact with Everett. Every company has the right to change direction, and every client has the right to decide if that new direction serves their interests. The market is brutally efficient that way. After the panel, 3 more former Travant clients approached me. By the end of the conference, Grantley had signed letters of intent with 5 new accounts, representing another $2.7 million in annual revenue. That evening, I checked the financial news. Travant had announced a restructuring. Brian Ellsworth was pursuing other opportunities. The Veritas acquisition was officially dead. Their stock had fallen another 8%. I closed my laptop without a trace of satisfaction or triumph. Just the quiet certainty that comes from being proven right in the most definitive way possible by the market itself. The lesson had been delivered. Whether they would learn from it was no longer my concern. 6 months after my termination, I stood in Grantley's largest conference room, surrounded by my team and the company's leadership. On the screen behind me, a single slide displayed our quarterly results. $8.4 million in new business, 70% from former Travant clients. Michael Grantley himself raised a glass. To the best acquisition we've ever made. And we didn't even have to buy a company to get it. Polite laughter rippled through the room. I smiled but didn't join in. This wasn't about celebration for me. It was about validation. My phone buzzed with a news alert. Travant Corp announces CEO transition. Everett Stanton steps down amid continued revenue challenges. I slipped the phone back into my pocket without showing anyone. Some victories don't need an audience. Later that afternoon, I received an email from Alicia Winters, the young woman Brian had tried to position as my replacement. I've been let go along with most of the sales team. Any chance Grantley is hiring? I forwarded it to HR with a note. Worth interviewing. Not her fault. What happened? As I was leaving the office, my assistant handed me an envelope that had been couriered over. Inside was a handwritten note from Everett Stanton. You were right. I put transaction above relationship. Cost the company everything. If you're ever willing to have coffee, I'd appreciate the chance to apologize in person. I folded the note and placed it in my jacket pocket. Maybe someday. Not yet. That evening, driving home, I passed Travant's building. The sign was being removed from the facade. The local business journal had reported they were downsizing to a smaller office in the suburbs. I didn't slow down, didn't take a photo. Just drove on, eyes forward, toward the life I was building on my own terms. 1 year to the day after Brian had slid those termination papers across the conference table, I signed the final documents making me a full partner at Grantley Company. The firm had grown 34% since my arrival. My client portfolio now represented nearly $20 million in annual revenue. I closed the manila folder containing the partnership agreement and looked out my office window at the Kansas City skyline. The same buildings, the same city, but everything else had changed. Rebecca entered with 2 cups of coffee. Signed and official. I nodded. Signed and official. She sat across from me, studying my face. You don't look as happy as I expected. Just thinking. About Travant. I shook my head. About what I'm building here. About doing it right this time. That morning, I'd approved hiring 3 new account managers, all with the same profit-sharing structure I'd negotiated for myself. No one would build something here only to have it taken away. That was my first act as partner. My phone buzzed. A text from Travis Rizzard about the partnership. Congratulations. Knew you'd land on your feet. Thanks to clients like you. No, he corrected. Thanks to you being who you are, we just followed the value. After we hung up, I picked up the frame Rebecca had given me last Christmas. A simple quote on parchment paper. The best revenge is massive success. I placed it back on the credenza face down. That chapter was closed. I took out my calendar and booked lunch with Everett Stanton. Not to gloat, not to rehash the past, but because sometimes the final step in moving forward is releasing the weight of what happened before. I shut down my computer, picked up my keys, and walked out to meet Rebecca. We had tickets to our son's band performance, something I wouldn't have made time for in my previous life. Some losses clear the way for better victories. Some fires burn away what needs to go. I'd never been more certain of that than I was today.
I was told that my inability to communicate makes me a bother. Ha, ha, she chuckles as she observes her pal on the other side having a joyful conversation. She stands by herself in the corner of the busy reception area, her sorrowful grin making my chest ache. I'm really hopeless, aren't I? I seized her hand out of impulse and almost violently pulled her up when I heard her feeble murmur, which was so different from her normal self. We're going, Emily. What? Where are you going? I went directly to our destination without responding to Emily's question. Perhaps Emily finds this aggressive approach annoying. She may come to despise me for it. I still wanted to retaliate against people who made fun of her, though. Ryan is my name. I am currently 27 years old, unemployed, and recently quit my work. As a child, I lived in several different countries due to my father's work. From an early age, I followed my father's instructions and spent every day frantically attempting to fit in new places where I didn't understand the language. I was lucky enough to acquire English as a result, and I've been using it in my profession ever since. But my childhood experiences have had a lasting impact on my life. I was made fun of by certain people simply for being a foreigner, but in the end, I was able to make friends in a setting where I felt accepted. I had to relocate to another nation just as I was beginning to settle in. I sobbed every time. Occasionally became irate, and my parents would repeatedly apologize while wearing a dejected expression. In order to safeguard my heart, I created a coping mechanism: avoid becoming overly connected to something significant. Maintain brief connections. Avoid being tied to objects or locations. It eased the sadness, but it made everything seem colorless. I was referred to be chilly or uninterested. However, I would be the one who suffers if I let those comments to influence me and become hooked to something once more. I ended up having few connections as a result of living that way. I don't even have a buddy, much less a romantic companion. I don't have any passion for my profession or hobbies. I keep having a dream in the midst of the worry and resignation that characterize my everyday existence. The person in front of me is there. Like the surrounding landscape, the face is fuzzy, making it difficult for me to see the emotion. The youngster is holding one flower. "Thank you," a kind yet a little uncomfortable voice says. "Perhaps one day." I couldn't speak. The voice sounds like it's about to cry, and I wake up when I try to answer it. This is not the first time I've had this dream. I feel a slight sense of loneliness in my chest as I wake up. An enigmatic dream. The identity of the youngster in the dream is unknown to me. First of all, I have no idea whether this dream is a memory or only a product of my imagination. But for some reason, I feel a tiny spark of motivation ignite within me whenever I have this dream. Perhaps I ought to try it. I'm not sure whether it's because I feel compelled to act after experiencing the dream, or because it's motivating me. However, the dream also managed to flick my motivation switch this time. I was able to secure a new job a few days later after attending an interview at a foreign-owned company where I had applied. The company I joined is an international manufacturer called CNB International. It's a position in their Japan branch, and they hired me for my language skills and experience in foreign companies. On my first day at work, while making the rounds to greet my colleagues and superiors, I met a woman named Emily. She was the daughter of the company's president and my supervisor. The same age as me, with her rich black hair tied back, her slender arms and legs, and her gray suit perfectly tailored, she looked every bit the competent boss. She also had sharp eyes that looked great with glasses, and well-shaped lips that exuded a mature allure for her age. I forgot I was at work and found myself captivated by her. She seemed to be looking at me as well, or so I thought. "Oh, this is perfect timing, Emily. This is Ryan, the new employee I was just telling you about." The man standing next to her spoke with a gentle smile directed at me. Hearing his words, I snapped out of my trance and hastily greeted them. "Nice to meet you. My name is Ryan. I look forward to working with you." When I looked up, Emily was still staring at my face. Her expression seemed complicated, as if a mix of emotions were swirling inside her. The gentleman beside her looked surprised by her reaction. "Do you two know each other?" Indeed, her reaction and the way she spoke made it seem like she recognized me, but I had no recollection of meeting her before. I'm sorry, but I believe this is our first time meeting." At my words, Emily's face suddenly changed. "It's nothing. I'm sorry." A smile appeared on her face, but her eyes were not smiling. Her tone and manner were polite, yet there was a certain sharpness to it. Since that first encounter, she has treated me coldly every day. Even someone as dense as me can sense it. She seems to dislike me very much. Maybe I did something wrong during our initial introduction. Or perhaps it's just a matter of personal incompatibility. Today, too, I asked her to check the meeting documents I had prepared. After reviewing them, Emily sighed once and crossed her arms. "What are you doing? You can go now." "Huh? What are you saying?" "You're such a helpless idiot that you can't do anything without my instructions." "Oh, thank you for your time." She looked at me sharply and spoke in that cold, harsh tone. This is how it always goes. So her attitude towards me is as cold and strict as ice. Did I do something wrong? As I pondered this while working, the phone rang. A colleague at the desk next to me answered. However, the caller on the other end was speaking English, and quite rapidly at that. Struggling to understand, my colleague seemed flustered. I quickly scribbled "I'll take over" on a note and showed it to him, then took the call. The inquiry was just about confirming an appointment, so I quickly responded and hung up. The colleague who had initially answered thanked me, but I felt Emily's gaze from across the room and instinctively looked her way. For a brief moment, our eyes met. Then she glared sharply at me before deliberately turning away. Noticing our exchange, my colleagues around us gave me sympathetic looks. Why is Emily so cold only to Ryan, they wondered aloud. All I could do was return a strange smile. Whatever the reason, I no longer cared. Being coldly treated by Emily, who was not only the president's daughter but also my direct supervisor, had already broken my spirit. Looks like this job isn't going to work out either. Given how much she dislikes me, it's making my work environment incredibly difficult. And even though I'm usually indifferent to others, it's starting to affect me mentally. It hasn't even been 3 months since I started this job, my shortest stint ever, but I found myself scrolling through job listings already considering my next move. It was after the day's work, as everyone was getting ready to leave. Hey, Ryan, see you tomorrow. Oh, Mary. See you too. The cheerful voice belonged to Mary, a colleague from the same department. With her bright hair in a ponytail and a refreshing smile, she was a different kind of beauty compared to Emily. She's the same age as me, and it seems she's been friends with Emily since their college days. You look pretty tired. Are you okay? Haha, yeah? Hey, how about going out for a drink if you'd like? What? It had been a while since I'd been asked out by a woman, so I couldn't help but let out a surprised voice. Seeing my reaction, Mary giggled with amusement. Is it really that surprising? Come on, get ready. I'll introduce you to one of my favorite places. Well, don't be shy, okay? Honestly, I was tired and just wanted to go home. But with Mary's persistent urging, I ended up being half-forced into going for a drink with her. As we clinked our glasses for a toast, I wondered what I should talk about with Mary, with whom I hadn't spoken much beyond greetings since I joined the company. By the way, Ryan, your phone handling today was impressive. Oh no, it was nothing. Your English is really good. Did you study abroad or something? I lived overseas because of my father's job. Oh, I see. That explains why you're so fluent. It's really not a big deal. Oh, come on, no need to be so modest. Mary laughed as she said that. Thinking that it's not really about modesty, I took a sip of my beer. A brief silence followed. I worried I might have offended her with my lack of conversation, but then she asked, By the way, I noticed Emily was giving you a hard time again today. Are you okay? Mary's expression had shifted to one of genuine concern. She seems to be particularly harsh on you. Do you have any idea why? No. She's been like that since our first meeting, so I think she just dislikes me. Maybe she finds me repulsive or something. At least the one saving grace is that even though her demeanor is cold, she's always thorough about work matters. I see. If you don't know the reason, there's not much you can do about it. But if you ever have any trouble with Emily, just let me know, okay? I've known her for quite a while. Huh? Oh, Emily. We've been together since college. We have different tastes in clothes, but we're about the same height and have similar tastes in foods, so we got along well. Indeed, Mary and Emily are about the same height and both have great figures. They're both quite beautiful. Mary is the lively, energetic type, while Emily seems more like the quiet, refined type. If these two were standing together, they'd surely draw attention. I thought maybe because we were always together, people often compared us. Mary continued, like rivals or something. Rivals, huh? I've never thought of it that way. Mary laughed loudly, her mouth wide open. I wondered if Emily, who only ever showed me a cold expression, ever laughed like this when she was with Mary. Well, we ended up in the same company due to our long-standing connection, but I'm probably the only one who can say anything to that president's daughter, so if anything comes up, don't hesitate to talk to me. I'll set her straight. Mary winked playfully as she said that. Her tough, big, sisterly words made me chuckle despite myself. I doubted I actually have anything to consult her about, but having a dependable senior around made me feel a bit more at ease. After about an hour, we left the bar. As we were heading toward the station, I reached into my pocket. The pocket where my travel card should have been was empty. I checked the other pocket, but it wasn't there either. I even checked my bag just in case, but that was a dead end too. That's wrong. Sorry, it seems I left my travel card behind. I'm going back to the office to get it. Ryan, I didn't expect you to be so absent-minded. Well, see you tomorrow. Yeah, have a good night. After giving a small bow to Mary as she left, I turned and ran back toward the office. I explained the situation to the security guard at the entrance and he let me in. Since it was already past quitting time, the office was quiet. However, as I got closer to my department, I noticed a faint light still on. Is someone still here? It was unusual for anyone to be working overtime at this company, which generally discouraged it. Curious, I stepped inside and saw someone working at a computer in the dimly lit corner of the room. Emily? What? Ryan, what are you doing here? Surprised by my sudden call, Emily jumped up with a loud clatter. Oh, I came back to get something I forgot. We stared at each other for a few seconds, and an awkward silence filled the air, much like our usual interactions. I quickly rushed over to my desk and searched for my travel card. Ah, there it is. I picked it up from where it lay on the floor. Good night. Night. I was about to leave with a quick goodbye, but Emily unexpectedly stopped me. I braced myself, unsure what she would say, but her words were surprising. Your English, it was so clear and you answered their questions so fluently. I was impressed. I've been able to speak English since I was a child because I lived abroad. I've used it in my work for a long time so I can handle business situations. I was taken aback by the absence of her usual cold demeanor, and I responded normally. She widened her eyes at my answer. Then the next moment she smiled, a bit sadly. I see. I wasn't allowed to study abroad because my family thought it was too dangerous. Mary studied abroad, and she has such a good memory. Her pronunciation is as clear as yours. I guess we can't really improve unless we listen to and speak with native speakers. Well, I do think talking to native speakers is the best way. But even in Japan, there are plenty of ways to learn. There are schools, and with the internet, you can even have private lessons from home. Something in my words seemed to make her think for a moment. Then she looked straight at me. Seeing her gaze, I almost took a step back. But she spoke before I could. Then, Ryan, you should teach me. Huh? Why me? Despite the fact that she was my boss, the words slipped out of my mouth. Just do it. That's an order. She pointed her finger directly at me with determination. No way. That's just ridiculous. I've never heard of such an order from a boss before. I sighed and looked back at Emily with a skeptical expression. Why don't you ask Mary? She's your friend, right? You knew I heard from Mary. She said you've been friends since college. Wouldn't it be easier to learn from a friend than from someone like me? Thinking of how coldly she usually treated me, I couldn't help but make a slightly snide comment. My words seemed to make her flinch, and she started fidgeting with her hands in front of her chest. That's true, but it's hard to ask Mary. I've always been compared to her, who can do everything so effortlessly. It frustrates me to lean on her even now as an adult. Emily's expression softened, looking a bit vulnerable. It was so different from her usual demeanor that I felt a sudden pang in my chest. Then maybe you should consider taking some classes or something like that. I stammered out a response, but Emily shook her head. There's going to be a reception soon, not just with people from Japan, but also from the head office and branches around the world. I'll have to present the new project as a representative of the company at that time. Since some of the materials are confidential, it's hard to ask someone outside the company, so please. Emily had come so close that she was looking up at me. I could see her eyes behind her glasses trembling slightly. All right. If I'm good enough. Having been treated so coldly since joining the company, her sincere attitude caught me off guard, and I found myself agreeing almost instinctively. Well, I'll just handle it casually, I thought after agreeing. But then Emily's face lit up with a smile as she said, "Thank you, Ryan." Her usual cool demeanor softened a little. There was something almost girlish about her smile. It felt strangely nostalgic, like a feeling that made me want to cry. A fleeting, inexplicable sensation wrapped around me. No problem. I couldn't take my eyes off her smile. Holding my left chest to quiet the loud thumping in my heart, I could barely manage that response. From the next day, we decided to start the lessons immediately, borrowing a meeting room after work. I borrowed the materials from Emily in advance, translated them into English, and handed them to her. I also picked out and summarized words and phrases that were difficult to understand even with a dictionary, and commonly used terms in business contexts. Emily also asked me to prepare additional materials, so I was quite busy with preparations for the upcoming reception. When we started the lessons, I noticed that while Emily had a solid grasp of grammar, her expressions were rigid, and her seriousness made her facial expression stiff as well. I found myself getting tense just talking to her. "Emily, try to relax a little more." "Relax? Okay. As you are now, you might take even a joke too seriously." "A joke?" "It's a reception, so it's not just business talk. There will be small talk too. Let's work on being able to make some jokes." "Got it. Teach me how to make jokes." Emily's earnest request, made with such a serious expression, was so endearing that it was hard to hold back my laughter. "Ryan, did you just laugh?" No, I didn't." "You laughed! Hey, I'm serious about this, so don't make fun of me." Emily puffed her cheeks and gave me a playful glare. However, this expression lacked the coldness of before, so it felt more like a friendly exchange. During the lessons, Emily no longer treated me coldly. In fact, her demeanor became much softer than before. When I first agreed to these lessons, I thought I'd just wing it. But seeing Emily diligently take notes and consistently review and prepare made me more invested in teaching her. I began to prepare thoroughly for each session. The more seriously we both took the lessons, the faster Emily improved and the more enjoyable the sessions became. I was sure Emily felt the same way, or at least I wanted to believe that. Mary had told me earlier, if anything comes up, feel free to consult with me, but in the end I never had anything to discuss. Incidentally, Emily had asked me to keep these lessons confidential, so no one else knew about them. Not that I had anyone to tell, anyway. The idea of a secret lesson between just the two of us made my heart race, but she was still my boss. I had to keep any strange thoughts in check. Besides, everything important in my life had always slipped through my fingers. I couldn't afford to give this any special meaning. But then, one day during a break, I was wandering around the floor with the archives, looking for a quiet place, and I saw Emily. It was just her back, but I couldn't have mistaken it. I hurried after her, but she disappeared. Did I lose her? As I turned to head back, I heard a voice. The door was slightly ajar, so I quietly approached and peeked in. The voice was soft, but it was unmistakably Emily's. From what little I could hear, it seemed she was practicing the parts of the pronunciation she had struggled with during the previous day's lesson. "Emily, you were practicing here." Despite her cool demeanor, her role as a manager, and the image of the company president's daughter, she wasn't naturally adept at everything. Of course, her overall abilities were high, which was why she held her position. But what I saw during our lessons wasn't just her excellence. There was a slightly clumsy side to her. She wasn't good at memorizing things, took a lot of notes, and was even conscious of the cute way her handwriting looked when she wasn't careful. It was an unexpected side of her. Once during a lesson, Emily spoke about herself. "I've always been slow to catch on, whether it's studying, work, or even remembering people's names. So I take lots of notes and look over them again and again, making lots of mistakes along the way. And only then I can finally stand on the same line as everyone else. It's embarrassing, so please keep it a secret." She said this with a shy smile. As for English, which she asked me to teach her, she confessed that she had struggled with pronunciation since her student days. That's why she had wanted to immerse herself in an environment with native speakers, whether through studying abroad or short stays, until the correct pronunciation became second nature. Although she hadn't been able to study abroad during her school years, she had still tried everything she could, studying in classrooms, listening to English songs and audiobooks. Hearing this, I genuinely thought she's an incredible person. Instead of giving up and thinking, this is as far as I can go, she kept pushing herself closer to her ideal. That kind of effort and mental strength can't be half-hearted, and Emily had been steadily building that up all along. She's so different from me. A person who stands in the exact opposite place of someone like me who has always given up, someone who has what I don't. At first, I was captivated by her beautiful appearance. But now that I know a little more about her, I'm drawn to the beauty and strength inside her. But Emily is my boss and the daughter of the company president. She's not the kind of woman who should be around a man like me who has a habit of running away and repeatedly changing jobs. I saw a glimpse of Emily's profile through the slightly open door. She was staring intently at her self-made lesson notes, repeating the words over and over. The lessons would be over soon. After that, I wouldn't have any more time like this to spend with Emily. So I decided to put a lid on the feelings that had started to grow inside me. It's what I've always done, after all. No big deal. And with that thought, I quietly left the area. By this time, there were less than 2 weeks left until the reception. Ryan, starting tomorrow, we're going to do some intensive training for the final touches, Emily told me at the end of that day's lesson. Got it. Just make sure you keep up, okay? Of course. But maybe you could go easy on me a little. No way. I'm going to push you hard, so be prepared. I'll do my best. After Emily's slightly anxious reply, we both laughed. I felt like we had grown closer in a way I couldn't have imagined when we first started. And because of that, I was feeling a bit sad that the end was approaching. There would only be a few more times to walk side by side out of the office. When the lessons end, we'll just go back to how things were. Lately, I had been repeating that to myself like a mantra. The next day, after work hours had passed and I was hastily finishing up the tasks left on my desk, Mary came over to me. Hey, Ryan, are you free today? I was thinking it'd be nice to go for a drink again. There's something I want to talk about, too. Since that last time we went out for drinks, Mary had been swamped with work, and I'd been equally busy with my tasks and the lessons with Emily, so we hadn't had much chance to talk. It was an appealing invitation, but I already had a lesson scheduled with Emily today, as usual. Sorry, I have plans today. Is there any way you can reschedule? Mary's voice seemed a bit tense. It's going to be a bit difficult. I've been busy lately and won't have much free time. I'm really sorry. I see. I understand. Mary, sensing that something was different, I tried to get a closer look at her face, but she quickly flashed me a bright smile and said, Well, if you're busy, then it can't be helped. But you have to promise to go out with me next time, okay? Deal. Got it? Just let me know when and I'll make time. At first, I was worried about her seeming displeased, but in the end she agreed, and I felt relieved. However, the strange feeling I sensed from Mary at that moment wasn't just my imagination. Ryan, do you have a moment? You're the only one I can ask right now, so please. Ow. Ever since I turned down her invitation the other day, Mary had started coming to me during work hours. Whether it was for help with simple tasks or questions that honestly anyone else could handle, she kept turning to me. Hey Ryan, can you help me translate this English document? Mary, I'm sorry, but I'm really swamped right now. Could you ask someone else? But I wanted to ask you since you're so good at English. Honestly, I don't have the time right now. Besides, for something like this, you can easily handle it yourself, right? If it turns out to be too much, just let me know then. Okay. Sorry to bother you when you're so busy. Mary tried to persist at first, but maybe because I clearly refused, she seemed a bit dissatisfied but didn't say anything further. I kept an eye on her during my task, but she seemed to be working without any issues or signs of struggle. What was that all about? I couldn't quite understand Mary's sudden request, but I finally felt a wave of fatigue wash over me now that I was free from them. Agreeing to help was one thing, but turning someone down was also pretty exhausting. While I was slumped in the break room, Emily came over to me. Ryan, so here you are. You look really tired, though. Oh, Emily. I straightened up from where I had been leaning against the back of the sofa and faced her. I didn't want to show her any unseemly side of myself. For some reason, that's how I felt. Does it really look like that? Actually, Mary's been relying on me for everything lately and dealing with that. Mary? Oh, maybe. Do you have any idea why? Emily nodded slightly in response to my question. Maybe about a week ago, it was just a coincidence, but Mary saw me handling something in English. She seemed really surprised, so I told her I'd been studying a lot lately. Last week. That was around the same time I had turned down Mary's invitation to go out for drinks. But how could that have anything to do with me? Maybe she's feeling pressure because my English, which I've always struggled with, suddenly improved. Just because of that? Even if that's the case, why is she bothering with me? Could it be that Emily mentioned that I was helping her? But she did ask me to keep it a secret. Sensing my thoughts, Emily quickly denied it with a flustered expression. Of course. I didn't tell her I was learning from you. Haha, it's okay. I wasn't doubting you. Thank goodness. Emily looked visibly relieved at my response. Because if I did say that, I'm sure she mumbled something under her breath that I couldn't quite catch. Sorry, what was that? Nothing. She shook her head quickly, looking a bit panicked. I couldn't quite understand why she seemed so flustered, and I tilted my head in confusion. Still, seeing her expression change so quickly, so different from the cold demeanor she had when we first met, made me smile naturally. Anyway, there are only a few days left until the reception, so let's do some more intensive training today. Of course. Wait, is that why you were looking for me? Huh? No, I just happened to be passing by. Anyway, see you. Oh. Emily. As I watched Emily's retreating figure, her words, "Only a few days left until the reception," kept repeating in my mind. Lately, it's always like this. I keep thinking about how my time with Emily is coming to an end. The reception? I wonder if it could get postponed somehow. No, that's just wishful thinking. I laughed at myself for such a silly thought. I've lived my life avoiding attachment, and yet here I was wishing. I hope it could last longer. Even I was surprised by this change in myself. That's how important my time with Emily had become to me. If I want more time with Emily, I need to put in the effort like she does. I had completely forgotten about the issue with Mary from earlier, and my mind was filled with memories of the fun days of lessons with Emily. A few more days passed, and finally the day before the reception arrived. Our secret English lessons were coming to an end. For our final test, Emily read the speech she would be presenting with perfect pronunciation. When she finished the last sentence, I gave her a big round of applause. Emily, that was the best performance yet. Really? Was it okay this time? It was perfect. Congratulations on graduating at the top of the class from Ryan School. I bowed deeply with a playful grin. Maybe because it was the last day, I found myself making lighthearted remarks that I wouldn't normally say. Emily looked surprised at my behavior, but then gave me a bright smile and said, "Hey, thank you, Ryan." That smile made me both happy and sad. My heart was in turmoil. It was the first time I'd felt this way. On this final day, I finally acknowledged my true feelings, my feelings for her, the step I had never dared to take before. What is it, Ryan? As I opened my mouth to convey my feelings, my eyes fell on something she was holding. It was a faded bookmark made from a single flower. A bookmark? Yes. It's my treasure given to me by someone I love very much. Oh, I see. Seeing Emily gaze at the bookmark with such a fond expression made my chest tighten with pain. It's not surprising that Emily would have someone she loves. Ryan, Emily, good luck with your speech tomorrow. I'll be rooting for you. I cut her off, forcing a smile. Thank you, Ryan. If it goes well, let's celebrate, okay? Sure. I don't really remember much of what we talked about after that. I had finally gathered the courage to step forward, but before I could express it, that faint hope was shattered. The things I cherished, the things I longed for, never seemed to stay in my grasp. With a familiar pain in my chest that I hadn't felt in years, I faced the day at the reception. As Emily had said, many people were invited, and the venue was filled with a lively multicultural atmosphere. Recognized for our language skills, both Mary and I were also attending the reception. While I was busy with the setup and other preparations, Mary came rushing over with slightly more glamorous makeup than usual. Mary looked even more beautiful, but there was also a noticeable tension in her demeanor. There you are, Ryan. I just got a message. They need you to handle an urgent task right away. What about the reception? Don't worry, I can handle it by myself. Ryan, you take care of the other task. I'm counting on you. With that, she firmly pushed me out of the venue. Grumbling internally about having to deal with work on the day of the reception, I reluctantly left the venue. I wish I could have at least heard Emily's speech, I muttered. Shoulders slumped. But there was no point in complaining. I ran back to my desk and started on the so-called urgent task that Mary had mentioned. An hour and a half later, I finished the work faster than I had expected and headed back to the reception venue. The reception was supposed to last about 2 hours, so I figured I could still make it in time for the mingling session. I just wanted to catch a glimpse of Emily conversing with many people in her improved English. I felt that if I could see that I had helped her, I might be able to keep moving forward somehow. But the scene that greeted me at the venue was not what I had hoped for. There was Emily standing off to the side, away from the clusters of people, looking lost and out of place. Emily. Ryan. Emily looked up at the sound of my voice. Her eyes were slightly red. Noticing my gaze, she quickly wiped her eyes and forced a small smile. The speech went well, thanks to you, Ryan. But when it came time for the mingling, I started hearing all sorts of languages other than English. The person who spoke to me was from France, and I got confused because I didn't understand. Then Mary came over. Emily clenched her fist tightly. Did Mary say something? She told me Emily can't speak anything but English, so just step aside. And then she walked off, chatting in French. Mary's amazing, isn't she? When did she manage to learn so much? But I was desperately studying English. Mary was preparing for today by mastering other languages too. I can't compete with her. It's so frustrating. Tears began to spill from Emily's eyes. The moment I saw those tears, I instinctively took her hand. Emily, let's go. Huh? Go where? It's frustrating to leave things like this, right? That's why we're going. Holding Emily's hand, I led her straight toward our target group. In that group were many VIPs, including those in the head office, speaking at least 3 different languages besides English. They were, in a sense, the main guests of this reception. I greeted them in English. They responded in French and Chinese. I quickly switched to those languages, introducing Emily standing beside me. They seemed to remember her speech well, and questions began pouring in rapidly. I translated each question into English for Emily, then conveyed her responses back to the questioners in their respective languages. After some time, I passionately explained to them that Emily was a key figure and the greatest contributor to this reception, detailing the immense effort she had put in to prepare for this day. The VIPs listened attentively to the end, and then gave Emily a big round of applause. Looking slightly embarrassed, she responded with a graceful bow. The scene was like a beautiful painting. Afterward, people continued to approach Emily one after another, and I stayed by her side as her personal interpreter. Eventually, the reception ended and we saw the guests off. When it was just the two of us left in the venue, Emily spoke to me. "Ryan, I didn't know you could speak languages other than English." I was so surprised. Well, because of my father's job, I traveled across many countries and ended up learning about 5 languages. It was tough at the time, trying so hard to learn, but I guess I have to thank my father, seeing how it's useful for work now. I see. Thanks to your father's guidance and your own efforts, you were able to help me like this. Thank you so much. After laughing together, I turned my gaze to Mary, who was standing there looking uncomfortable. "Mary, why did you do that, Emily?" At my words, Mary's face twisted with pain. Emily watched Mary quietly. "Isn't it obvious?" Mary said, "I wanted everyone to know that I'm more capable than Emily, that she's just a figurehead. At university, at work, my abilities have always been better, but Emily is always the one who gets all the attention. Even this speech, why is Emily, who isn't even good at English, the representative, while I, who am fluent in languages, am just a support, just because she's the president's daughter? That's so unfair. So you try to interfere with the English lessons by sticking around me?" I asked. "I saw you two practicing together by chance. I thought if her English wasn't good enough for the speech, Emily would give up and turn to me for help. But you turned out to be more stubborn and competent than I expected, and my plan backfired." Mary turned her face away as she spoke. Emily stepped in front of Mary. Tears were streaming down her face. "I'm really grateful to you, Mary. When I was isolated in college because of my family and my looks, you were the first person who reached out to me. Even after you found out I was the president's daughter, you were the only one who treated me the same. We've been together for so long, and I know this much, that you're kind, hardworking, and incredibly capable. That's why I didn't want to lose to you. I worked so hard because I want to stand beside you and not look like a fool. Emily, I want to keep working hard together with you. This company needs you, and so do I. So please keep helping me. Keep pushing me forward. It might take some time, but I will do my best to be someone you can respect. So please." Emily spoke, looking straight into Mary's eyes. Mary looked bewildered at Emily's sincerity, but after listening, she let out a big sigh. Emily tensed up for a moment as her eyes filled with anxiety. Mary flicked her forehead with a playful snap. "Ouch! I hate how straightforward you are, always trusting people blindly." Honestly, tears were welling up in Mary's eyes too. "I'm sorry, Emily. I said some awful things. I was just feeling angry, anxious. I know you're a hard worker, and I was scared that you might surpass me one day. But I won't do something like this again. Next time, I'll face you head on and compete fair and square." Mary, yeah, I won't lose next time either. They shook hands and laughed together. Seeing them like this, I realized that they were both valuable friends and worthy rivals. I'm kind of jealous. Noticing my gaze, Mary came over to me and bowed her head. "Sorry for causing you trouble. Ryan, I got a bit envious seeing how close you two had become after being so awkward at first." "Wait, Mary, what are you talking about?" Emily stammered, flustered for some reason. "But don't worry, I won't interfere anymore. Still, I'd be happy if you could come out for a drink with me occasionally." Sure, Mary." Haha, Emily's face is priceless. "Anyway, you two enjoy the rest of your time together." With that, Mary waved her hand and left the venue. Left alone, Emily and I looked at each other. After a brief silence, Emily spoke first. Ryan, thank you so much for helping me today. Thanks to you, both the reception and the speech were a great success. And you even helped mend things with Mary. It's because you were by my side, Ryan, that I could smile and stand strong today. Thank you, truly. Seeing that smile, the feelings I had tried to suppress started to overflow. I had decided I wanted to give up, but I realized I didn't want to part ways without saying anything. I didn't want to have regrets. That feeling pushed me forward. I like you, Emily. I know you have someone you love. But even if there's no chance, I wanted you to know. I'm glad I met you. From now on, we'll go back to being just boss and subordinate. But please continue to treat me well. Wait a moment. Emily cut me off and took out that faded bookmark, the one she had shown me before from her bag, where it had been tucked between the speech notes. Ryan, does this look familiar? It's the bookmark you showed me before, right? The one you said you got from someone you love. No, not the bookmark. Look at the flower itself. At her words, I stared closely at the flower. In that instant, the scene from the dream I occasionally saw came flooding back to me. The girl's face, which had always been blurry in my dreams, now became crystal clear in my memory. Thank you. Those were my awkward, broken words spoken shortly after I arrived in Japan. The girl who heard them smiled gently, her eyes filled with tears. We'll meet again someday, Ryan. In her hand was a single flower, a small blue flower I had picked as a final gift for the girl who had been so kind to me. Do you remember, Ryan? Her voice made my chest tighten. The girl from back then. Emily nodded with a smile. It was shortly after we returned to Japan following my father's overseas assignment. Having spent most of my life abroad since I was a child, I struggled to adjust to Japan. Unable to read, write, or speak Japanese, I stood out completely. Seen as a child who looks Japanese but isn't really Japanese. I couldn't adapt to the new school I had started attending and felt lost. That's when a classmate reached out to me. She too seemed out of place at school. I was always left out because they said I was too high and mighty or a spoiled rich girl. So I was always alone. Then you transferred, Ryan. I was so happy that you didn't run away when I talked to you. I guess we were similar in a way. Unable to take that extra step, we both ended up being isolated, growing lonelier. We couldn't even speak the same language. But before we knew it, we started spending a lot of time together. She was a girl with a lovely smile. I felt comfortable around her. But those days didn't last long. I had to transfer again because my father got a job at the headquarters. I wanted to express my gratitude. So I gave her that flower along with the word, thank you, which I had practiced many times. The flower you gave me that day, Ryan, I didn't want it to wither, so I pressed it into a bookmark like this. It's precious to me because it came from someone I loved. Wait, so the person you love? Ever since then, there's only been one person I've loved. My first love. Emily smiled as she spoke. She had grown up a lot since then, looking so much more mature and beautiful. But there was still a hint of that innocent smile from those days. Seeing that smile made my heart feel like it was filling with warmth. When I first saw you at the company, I recognized you right away as Ryan, but you didn't notice me at all, and it was a bit of a shock. So I ended up acting cold and childish. I'm sorry. I see. I'm the one who should be sorry for not realizing sooner. But when I heard your confession earlier, it made me so happy. It meant you were seeing me for who I am, even without the memory of our past. Isn't that right? Emily gazed at me intently. Emily? Ryan. Her eyes were glistening with emotion, and my heart started pounding loudly again. Ryan, I'm so happy. With those words, Emily threw herself into my chest. I wrapped my arms around her, feeling her warmth. Tears welled up in my eyes, something I had always wanted but never been able to grasp. A precious person I was finally able to hold for the first time. Emily, thank you for remembering me. And thank you, Ryan, for coming back to me. Since then, I've continued working at the same company where Emily is. my childhood experiences and the language skills I developed, thanks to my father's advice, helped make the recent reception a success, which boosted my confidence. I've started to feel a new sense of passion and purpose in my work. Emily also told me that I'm a good teacher. So now, I'm participating in an internal language training project, keeping me quite busy. Since that incident, Mary has become even more proactive in supporting Emily, and their partnership has become quite the talk, both inside and outside the company. Emily, too, has been putting even more effort into her work, aiming to be recognized as a successor candidate by her father. Her natural hard work and patience in steadily building her skills have begun to be acknowledged, and she's now been chosen to attend a reception at the French headquarters as a representative for President Mr. Anderson. To prepare for this, Emily and I have been doing French lessons together. Unlike before, our relationship is now public. So the lessons take place at my house. French is so hard. I think I'm struggling more than I did with English. Yeah, it can feel difficult because it sounds unfamiliar and the nouns have genders. But once you get used to it, you'll be fine. You say that so easily. She pouted, rested her chin on her hand with her cheeks puffed out. Seeing this childlike side of Emily, who is usually so cool and admired by everyone at the office, made me smile. However, noticing that my smile seemed to lower her motivation, I gently patted her head to encourage her. Emily, you're such a hard worker. You'll pick it up quickly. Besides, aren't we going to have tea at a cafe with a view of the Eiffel Tower? Yes, we are. Then let's give our best shot, okay? Okay. With that one word, she straightened up and began reading the French phrases she had written in her notes. Amused by how quickly she switched gears, I found her adorable and hugged her from behind. Ryan, please don't distract me from studying. Take a little break. You tend to push yourself too hard. Oh, come on. That's the opposite of what you just said. We laughed together. Even these casual conversations felt like happiness. I used to think that the things I cherished most would always slip through my fingers, so I decided to give up on them to protect my heart from getting hurt. But she taught me a different way of thinking, that I could work hard and hold on to what mattered instead of letting it slip away. I may still have only a few things I can keep in my grasp, but I hope to hold more as time goes on. I want to grow stronger together with her